If you guys have been watching this channel, you know I picked Georgia Tech to beat Florida State to open the season in my Week 0 predictions video. Well, Georgia Tech just shocked the world and my prediction aged very well. Georgia Tech grinded out a 24-21 win, and there are some things I want to take away from this game. But first of all, can we just give props to this Georgia Tech football program for all of the positives that they have had lately? They recently signed their first 5-star recruit in program history, and now they go out of the country to beat a top 10 team in Florida State. And I've said it all offseason, but I'm going to say it again. Brent Key has this team heading in the right direction. And this was a huge win for Brent Key and this Georgia Tech squad. I like this Florida State team, and I think Mike Novell is a great head coach, but their fans have also been whining and complaining all offseason. And I'm pretty sure Florida State fans cared more about beating Kirk Herbstreit than they actually cared about beating Georgia Tech. And I have to admit it was awesome to see this Georgia Tech team upset Florida State. And I'm just interested to see all the other excuses Florida State fans have hiding in their closets. Regardless of all the excuses they make, we all watched this game live, and Georgia Tech controlled almost every aspect of this game. And I have to say I was impressed with how well they controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I knew this Georgia Tech team returned 8 offensive starters for the season and 4 offensive linemen, but they really just pushed around that Florida State defensive line. And I'm expecting great things from this Florida State defensive line this season with guys like Patrick Payton, Marvin Jones Jr., and Darrell Jackson. But let's be honest, those guys hardly did anything in this game, and it was kind of weird. And behind that Georgia Tech offensive line, you had a great run game. Jamal Haynes will be one of the top running backs in the ACC this season, and he showed exactly why when he ran for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And I was also pretty impressed with the backup running back, Chad Alexander, because he made some plays and ran for 41 yards on the ground. Georgia Tech also has some great wide receivers with Eric Singleton Jr., Malik Rutherford, and Chase Ford, and those 3 guys definitely contributed to that win. But the X factor for this game had to be quarterback Haynes King for Georgia Tech. I knew if Georgia Tech wanted to win this game, Haynes King would have to be the difference maker in this game. And Haynes King proved exactly why he is one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in the nation right now. The guy showed incredible toughness in the game, and he also put together a great drive, making some great throws under pressure. He only threw for 16 passes, but he completed 11 of them for 146 yards. And he also didn't throw any interceptions in that game, which was a huge positive for this Georgia Tech team if you ask me. He was already really good last season, but those 16 interceptions he had last season really derailed his season. But I was very impressed with Haynes King in this game. And he made plays on the ground as well, running the ball 15 times with 54 rushing yards. His stats weren't crazy good, but he really helped Georgia Tech grind out a win in this game. And hopefully people can start putting more respect on the name of Haynes King because that dude can really ball. I think we saw great things from the defense in this game. But the big concern I still have for this team is the defense. That defensive pass rush was really good all game, and it looked much improved from where it was last season. This is a Florida State offensive line that was pretty good last season, and they had multiple starters back on the offensive line. But Georgia Tech's front 7 really dominated this game, and they were a big part of the reason they won this game. They stopped the run pretty well for a majority of the game. The defense just looked a lot different with the new defensive coordinator Tyler Santucci. They had multiple transfer players make some big plays, and sophomore Kyle Efford is a guy to keep an eye on because he's very talented and he contributed a lot in that win. He led the team in tackles with 10 in this game, and he was a big disruptor in this game. Let's not forget Georgia Tech had the worst rushing defense in the ACC last season, but the defense really looks like it has a new identity with Tyler Santucci. And I'm not saying they will be a great defense. I'm not even saying they will be good. I still think there's a lot more we need to see from the secondary, and they need to play against more good offenses just to see how good this Georgia Tech defense can be. But I can almost guarantee this defense is much improved from where it was last season, and the pass rush showed promise. I picked Georgia Tech to go 7-5 this year. I have them at 6-1 with the loss to Louisville heading into the Notre Dame game, but if Georgia Tech continues to impress, they could honestly be a sneaky ACC title contender. And I think the offense is in great hands with the talent that they have, but I still need to see more from the defense. And we'll see how they continue to perform these next few weeks, because I could change my pick and pick them to beat Louisville, and maybe they win a couple more big games on the schedule, but they really have a brutal schedule. But even if they lose to Notre Dame and Georgia, those losses will not count as conference losses, and Georgia Tech having the head-to-head over Florida State could be huge for them. So I am interested to see how Georgia Tech's season will ultimately play out. And as for Florida State, I know this is never the way you want to start the season. You guys went undefeated and won the ACC last season, so losing to Georgia Tech in the opener isn't ideal. But I still have faith in Mike Norvell and this Florida State team. There's a lot of talent on that defense, and I think the defense should be really good this season. But if you guys want to win the ACC again in 2024, we will need to see more wide receivers step up, and DJU really has to step up as well. We need to see more from the passing game because they really didn't have any signs of explosive plays that game. And I don't know if they really have any great playmakers at wide receiver who can be as productive as a Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson. Another thing that was questionable was that DJU's longest pass in the first half was for 6 yards. And he really just did not look super poised or confident in that system, and I still think he has a lot to prove. I picked Florida State to win the ACC despite picking them to lose to Georgia Tech because I do think it will take them time to get going offensively, but I have faith in the defense and Mike Norvell as a head coach. But this game really made me question a lot of things with this Florida State team. So I'm also interested to see how this new Florida State team with a bunch of new faces evolves throughout the season, because I do think they have a talented enough team to win the ACC. But let's be honest here, outside of the run game, Florida State looked horrible offensively, and they really didn't impress in the run game either. But I also felt like DJU didn't really take his chances down the field, and he really didn't have many opportunities to prove himself. I know DJU can throw some great deep passes from his time at Oregon State, so I would like to see him showcase that ability a bit more moving forward, but he actually needs to hit his target down the field, because when he did get the chance, he completely overthrew his target in that game. So DJU ultimately deserves all of the criticism he is getting. And yes, Florida State lost to a Georgia Tech team that had a preseason win total of 5.5, but I knew heading into the season this Georgia Tech team had some sneaky good talent. And just because Florida State lost this game doesn't mean they will take this huge step back from last year. Maybe they'll take a step back, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me if they turned their season around and maybe won 9 or 10 games. I still think they have ACC title aspirations, but that means we will need to see more from the offense, and they need their top playmakers like Patrick Payton to step up defensively. And I'm ultimately not going to overreact to this Week 0 game because it's only Week 0, and like I said, Florida State has a bunch of new faces, and I do think Georgia Tech is actually a good team. I just don't know how good they can actually be. But ultimately, we will find out a lot more about these two teams as the season moves along. But if Florida State does not start proving themselves this season, I really might pick them to lose more games, and I'm not picking them to win the ACC. But I'm not completely giving up on this Florida State team yet this season. I also want to give a shout out to SMU and the win over Nevada. There's not a lot I want to take away from that game, but SMU definitely needs to play a lot better if they want to be competitive in the ACC, because they did not play a clean game against Nevada at all. It's great to have college football back, and even though there wasn't any big games yesterday, every single game was surprisingly competitive. And I'm already excited for Week 1. We got some big matchups Week 1. We have Florida playing Miami. We have Notre Dame and Texas A&M. We have Clemson and Georgia. Week 1 is going to be awesome. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel because we upload a ton of college football content. And we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing. And also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.